What's up everybody, welcome to Moto. Today we're finally going to start on disassembling the front so that we can upgrade the front forks. So check it out. Alright, so before we go ahead and rip up the whole bike, I wanted to measure what the sag on the front forks is as is currently. Now I have them with 14 psi air pressure in them right now, which is kind of the max they should be at, so they're at their stiffest. So let's see how it performs with that. So that's about how far they will go, and just so we can measure, put a little piece of tape down here. Okay. There we go. Okay, so we have about this much sag. Like I said, that is about 1 1/3 inches. So measuring from the fork tube itself, 1 1/3 inches or 3 centimeters, 3.4 centimeters. So that's, I guess, important to know. I'm going to drop out all the air out of the forks now, and let's do the same measurement. See what they're like when they're not inflated at all. So once we do set up with the new springs, new fork oil, proper air pressure, we can again compare and see if we actually improved the static conditions for the front forks. By the way, in terms of how I knew there was 14 psi into the forks, I was using my progressive suspension pump with the gauge. So when you plug it in, it actually tells you the pressure, and I'm going to use it as well to drop the pressure out of it. So there we go. Drop that down to nothing so it stops hissing. Okay, and now the forks are empty. So let's measure the sag now. Bike is fully standing still with the forks fully extended. Let's see how the sag is now with the forks empty. Okay, that looks like quite a bit more, but let's double check. So we have, oh yeah, that's way more. That's like 2 inches. So just over, so 5.2 centimeters. So that's quite a bit more. So definitely need to have proper inflation into your if you do have air-assisted forks, you definitely need that extra air to stiffen them up so that you're not losing suspension travel. Because if I have them empty like this, that's 2 inches less travel out of the 5.5 that the forks have. So that leaves me 3.5 inches, which is not the best. Okay, so now let's set the bike up so we can start disassembling. All right, front end is jacked up. Let's remove the front wheel. In order to do that, we need to undo the speed sensor.
undo these two bolts and then unscrew the axle, take it out, and the wheel should just drop out. So let's do that. Speed sensor is off. It was just held by a single Phillips head bolt right in here. So just so we don't lose the bolt, screw that back in there. Like so. Okay, this it could probably remain attached to this. Now for the other side, let's undo the axle bolts. So it turns out that to drop the front wheel out, I need to remove the right side caliper. So let's undo these two Allen keys so we can move this guy out of the way and then maneuver the front wheel out. Okay, front wheel is off. I put the end of the fork that holds the axle in place back on with the nuts and the washers on here, just so I don't lose them. We'll bring these up with me when I take all the forks off. Same with the bolts that kept the caliper to the fork. I kept those on there just so I don't lose them. Okay, so now that that's off, let's see what else we need to take off to get closer to sliding these guys out of the triple trees. All right, next on the list, before we move on, we need to make some space. So let's take the light off, take these brackets off along with the horns. We'll keep that stuff somewhere. And you can see the rear tires back, or the front tires back there, with the axle still in it, just so I don't lose it. Because, well, can't really have a wheel without an axle. Okay, and yeah, so let's get this headlight off. All right, headlight and horns are off. This is the horn cable. This headlight cables, everything's off. Now it seems like the only things left that are attached to the forks themselves are the triple trees and the clip-ons. So let's first detach some of this stuff at the bottom. So the fender and this brace. So the fender and this brace. Unhook the brake lines and the caliper. So that is just the tubes, and then we're going to deal with unhooking the rest. Okay, the front fender is actually held by 4 bolts. Here, and here, and here. On the inside. Pretty straightforward. They're 10mm bolts. They're not very tight, so it should be pretty easy to unscrew them just by hand once you crack them open. As you can see, there we go. We got this one. Now, it comes out towards the back. Okay, so definitely need to clean that up. We'll see, maybe I'll paint it while I have it off, just to make it black, because there's a little bit too much chrome on the front. But okay, that's off. Let's get the other caliper unmounted, and we can start taking this guy off. Remove the right side caliper. We need to remove this one, which is a 12mm, I believe. Yep. And the big one up top, which is a 14. So once we take those off, the entire assembly should just kind of be able to hang, much like the other one. And then we can take this off and deal with the triple trees. Corrected, so all I needed to do was pivot it backwards, and then the top one actually has a big shaft or whatever that it runs through it. So there we go. That's off. Now, in order not to lose pieces, let's put this guy back into the big one. Just so, yeah, just enough to thread it in. And same with this guy. Enough to just thread it in. And we'll deal with those at a later date. Okay, so now we're ready to remove the fork brace and start loosening the top up. So let's take out the brace, which is, I believe these are Allen keys, a very gucked up Allen key, or did I just break it? Oh, I just broke it. That's interesting. So the little cap was so corroded that it just snapped. I don't need to bust it out of there piece by piece. Okay, well, let's clean that up. So this is what happens to Allen bolt caps when they're 38 years old. They're plastic, they're not metal, even though they're chrome covered, and they snap. Thankfully, because they're plastic, they're also quite easy to get out of there. So there we go, I got all 4. Out of the 4, 2 of them snapped and 2 came out cleanly. So I think I'm just not gonna bother replacing them. Okay, let's take these out. Center braces off, bolts as usual, same as with the Fender ones. Put them back in their holes just so I don't lose them. We will actually make use of these to help carry this upstairs. I'll put the brace back on just so it keeps the 2 tubes as one element. Now before we loosen up the triple trees and the clip-ons, one vital thing that we should do is crack this loose. If we don't, this becomes a very difficult thing to loosen up, and we're going to have to clamp it onto a vise or something of that sort. There's no way I'm going to be able to hold this and undo these. So let's crack these loose, then tighten them back just enough so that they stay in, and then loosen up the fork tubes and start pulling things out. The fork caps are loose. I loosen them up and just put them back in just so they stay nice and closed and I don't get oil leaks everywhere. Now let's loosen up the clip-ons. They're just Allen keys. Loosen up the top triple tree, the bottom triple tree, and start sliding them out one by one. Okay, so once you have everything loose, then it just becomes a shimmying game. Okay, there you go. Boom, fork is off and clip on can hang on. All right, one fork out. Let's apply the same strategy and get the other one off as well. Put this down here. Yeah, all 3 of the bolts. I have what is it? A 5mm for the clip-on bolts, 6mm for the top clamp, and an 8mm for the bottom clamp. Okay, I think that's loose enough. Okay, and fork number 2, we're good to go. Like I said before, for ease of carrying and so we don't lose things, I put the brace, the fork brace, back onto the forks, so it attaches them together. And I put the plastic caps on top because it is nice to have these, and so that we don't lose them. Okay, so now let's clean things up and take things back up to the shop. All right, so the last thing that we're going to do today before we wrap up is I'm going to loosen up the bolts at the bottom of the forks. Now these bolts, there's many videos on YouTube that show you that you can't just, oh, and by the way, I'm using a long extension, a 6mm, and essentially a pipe. Well, this is actually a 1/2-inch extension with a 13mm socket on it. And if you were just to like try to do this slowly, like you would with most other bolts, you're not going to do anything. So this just ends up rotating the entire shaft in the middle. So what you want to do instead is line yourself up and try to crack it open with more of an impact than a smooth gyration. There you go. And that's loose now. Now, don't open it up because it will leak oil like it is already. Shit. So yeah, this is a messy process. So make sure that you don't have anything valuable that you don't want to get dirty. Okay, so this one's cracked open. That's a lot of oil. For now. And now for the other one. This one still has the nuts and washers at the end. So try not to lose them. And same thing here. We're gonna do this, and let's put some rags this time, just in case. Okay, we'll have one on standby. All right, so again, if we just rotate this nicely, oh, this one actually loosened up this way. Well, interestingly enough, that shouldn't be happening, so that's okay. We've loosened it, tightened it back up, we're good to go. Wipe our tools so we're not making a mess everywhere. And that's it. Alright, so forks just need to be taken apart and adjusted, and we should be good to go. Alright guys, so that was it for this episode. Make sure to subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications when new videos become available. Follow me on Instagram at balconmoto2018, and if you haven't already, check out balconmoto.com, where I have articles with all sorts of tutorials and things that I do, as well as some interesting tools for you to use when in your build. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.